Some walking tracks are famous for breathtaking views. Others are remembered for the people who never came back, or for the terrifying encounters that still can't be explained. Across Australia, hikers have reported hearing phantom footsteps, seeing shadowy figures, and experiencing moments that left them questioning reality. So before you plan your next adventure, let's count down the 10 most haunted walking tracks in Australia. 10. The Thorsborne Trail, Hinchinbrook Island, QLD. Deep within the completely uninhabited Hinchinbrook Island lies a rugged 32-kilometer tropical track, where the serene paradise vibe vanishes completely as the trail nears the shadows of Mount Straloch and the mangrove swamps, shifting into a suffocatingly still and intensely isolated atmosphere. This oppressive environment is rooted in a tragic wartime disaster from December 18, 1942, when an American B-24 Liberator bomber, known as the Texas Terror, flew directly into the mountainside during a violent storm, killing all 12 people on board and leaving a wreckage that sat undiscovered in the dense jungle until 1948. Today, multi-day hikers camping at Little Ramsey Bay or Nina Bay are routinely jolted awake in the middle of the night by the deep, deafening roar of a low-flying aircraft engine tearing through the sky, only to find a completely clear and silent night when they scramble out of their tents. To make matters more chilling, a few trekkers navigating the dense, misty ridges have claimed to see figures dressed in outdated, tattered military flight gear standing in the thick vegetation just off the path, who step backward into the jungle and vanish without a sound when approached. 9. Devil's Marbles, Karlu Karlu, Northern Territory. Known as Karlu Karlu to the traditional owners, these massive, precariously balanced granite boulders are millions of years old and carry immense spiritual power, with local indigenous elders strictly warning visitors never to disrespect the area, take rocks, or stay past darkness. While it serves as a popular tourist stop during the day, the atmosphere shifts aggressively as the sun dips below the horizon. The temperature plummets to freezing, and the wind blowing through the rock formations creates an eerie, whistling hiss that sounds remarkably like low chanting or whispering. Campers and late-night walkers pushing their luck find themselves targeted by the paranormal, frequently capturing photos and video of tall, dark, elongated shadow figures darting between the boulders while hearing heavy, rhythmic thudding sounds following behind them, as if something massive is stepping from stone to stone just above their heads. The spiritual weight of the site extends globally through the souvenir curse, as park rangers regularly receive international packages containing stolen rock fragments from tourists who describe a string of sudden, severe misfortunes, phantom footsteps in their homes, and terrifying nightmares that only stop once the stolen rock is returned to the marbles. 8. Bushrangers Bay Track, Victoria. Skirting the rugged cliffs of the Mornington Peninsula, this windswept track transitions from serene Banksia forests into dark, jagged volcanic rock cliffs over a crashing ocean, carrying an overwhelming sensation of a watchful eye tracking your every move from the dense tree line. The track is named after the desperate escaped convicts and bushrangers who hid out in the wild coastal caves during the 1800s, a lawless history further marred by violent shipwrecks and brutal standoffs where men met terrifying, watery ends. This heavy, lingering colonial energy manifests in chilling encounters, with solo walkers frequently reporting hearing their names clearly whispered by a gravelly male voice right next to their ears when passing through the narrowest parts of the coastal scrub. Furthermore, multiple hikers trekking around dusk have reported seeing figures dressed in heavy, dark 19th century colonial coats, standing precariously close to the cliff edges, who suddenly step off into the abyss when approached or shouted at, vanishing into thin air without making a single splash in the roaring ocean below. 7. Mount Buffalo National Park Tracks, Victoria. Rising sharply above the subalpine plains, Mount Buffalo is home to treacherous walking tracks, steep drop-offs, and the historic, sprawling Mount Buffalo Chalet built in 1910, a landscape that has been the site of numerous fatal falls, tragic hiking disappearances, and suicides over the past century. When the notorious alpine fog rolls across the granite plateau, visibility drops to zero within seconds, causing a dead silent sensory deprivation that completely muffles the natural forest sounds and amplifies the mountain's ghosts. One of the most common encounters occurs on the Gorge Walk, where hikers spot the apparition of a young boy in old-fashioned early 1900s clothing, wandering out of the mist, looking shivering and distressed, only for him to completely evaporate into thin air the moment they move toward him to offer help. Meanwhile, walkers passing the historic locked chalet tracks late at night have reported seeing a pale woman in a white dress staring down blankly out of the upper windows of the empty building, accompanied by the faint, impossible sound of jazz music drifting out through the trees. 6. Mount Warning, Wollongong, New South Wales. Wollongong holds a deeply sacred and highly restricted place in Bundjalung Aboriginal law as a site of powerful spiritual trials. And because it is the first place on the Australian mainland to be hit by the morning sun, it acts as a natural lightning rod that has claimed the lives of multiple hikers over the decades, while others vanished entirely into its impenetrable vertical rainforest gullies. Before its permanent closure out of cultural respect, hikers widely documented a palpable, oppressive weight that grew heavier with every step up the steep, winding incline, as if the ancient trees and root systems possessed an energy explicitly hostile to outsiders. This spiritual hostility is backed by terrifying auditory and physical phenomena. Campers at the base and patrolling rangers have frequently reported hearing agonizing, blood-curdling screams echoing down from the upper ridges at night, sounding exactly like someone falling or being struck by lightning, yet search parties never find a trace of anyone. Furthermore, dozens of former night hikers attempting to catch the sunrise reported experiencing a sudden, overwhelming wave of primordial panic at the exact same spot on the track, claiming an invisible, freezing force physically pushed against their chests and forced them to turn back down the mountain. 5. The Overland Track, Cradle Mountain, Tasmania. Winding through Tasmania's brutal frozen high country, this iconic 65-kilometer trail has claimed the lives of several ill-prepared hikers over the past century due to hypothermia and sudden blizzards, with its historic primitive timber huts, like Kitchen Hut and Duquesne Hut, serving as grim shelter for freezing, dying walkers over the decades. The atmosphere inside these old wooden huts is notoriously thick, and even with a fire roaring, hikers describe sudden, localized cold spots that make their breaths instantly freeze inside the shelters, as the translucent, pale figure of a shivering, blue-lipped man materializes in the corner, staring at them with hollow eyes before slowly fading into the timber walls. Out on the exposed alpine plains of the Cradle Mountain Plateau, the terror continues for solo trekkers, who frequently report hearing the distinct crunch of boots on gravel directly behind them. This phantom entity perfectly mirrors their movements, speeding up when they speed up and stopping a second after they stop, leaving hikers stranded in the bleak wilderness with the realization that they are being hunted by something invisible. 4. Ghost Hole Track, Mount Coot-Tha, Brisbane, QLD. Tucked away inside the Mount Coot-Tha forest, this short 1.5-kilometer trail leads directly to the sealed, bricked-up entrance of an abandoned 1940s gold mine that was a commercial failure and completely abandoned by 1959. However, the surrounding forest carries a much darker, modern history, marred by multiple documented murders, illicit occult gatherings, and suicides at the nearby chillingly named JC Slaughter Falls. As you walk toward the sealed tunnel entrance, the forest grows noticeably dense and quiet, and the air becomes famously cold, smelling faintly of old, damp earth and sulfur, even in the middle of a scorching Queensland summer. Local paranormal investigators and casual hikers claim the track is actively haunted by 4 distinct entities, 3 females and 1 male, causing electronic equipment and digital cameras to violently malfunction near the shaft. Walkers on the track frequently capture strange disembodied whispers and report seeing tall, lanky shadow figures moving rapidly through the trees alongside the track to keep pace with them. While near the creek line, multiple witnesses have reported seeing a pale, weeping woman in modern clothing who completely disappears the moment a flashlight beam hits her. 3. Blue Mountains Grand Canyon Track, New South Wales. Dropping deep into a prehistoric moss-covered slot canyon, where towering sandstone walls block out the sun entirely, this stunning loop has a grim history of flash floods, catastrophic bushfires, and fatal falls from the sheer cliffs above, layered over ancient local legends of deep forest entities and unexplained vanishings dating back well before European settlement. Deep inside the canyon floor, the temperature drops drastically, and the constant echoing drips of water create an environment where it is incredibly easy to lose your sense of direction and fall prey to a disorienting ancient energy that distorts time and space. Hikers walking in small groups have frequently reported looking back to see a companion walking a few meters behind them, only for that person to suddenly step behind a large fern or boulder and vanish into thin air, leaving the group to find them far ahead on the trail, claiming they felt a strange urge to get away from the back of the line. Adding to the dread, several independent reports from late afternoon hikers describe a tall, black-hooded, faceless figure standing completely motionless on the narrow sandstone ledges high above the track, silently watching walkers pass below before melting into the dark rock faces. 2. Hanging Rock Walking Track, Victoria. Formed by stiff volcanic lava 6 million years ago, Hanging Rock is a bizarre maze of eerie rock formations, pinnacles, and echo chambers that is notorious for its complete lack of bird and animal life near the summit tracks. While globally famous due to Joan Lindsay's fictional novel and film Picnic at Hanging Rock, the real-world horror of the track is rooted in its heavy colonial history as a violent hotspot for bushrangers like Mad Dog Morgan and a site of brutal dispossession of the local Wurundjeri people. Visitors universally report a bizarre acoustic distortion where voices don't carry properly and echoes sound warped, while digital cameras and smartwatches frequently freeze or completely drain their batteries within minutes of ascending. Despite the famous vanishings being fictional lore, hundreds of real-world hikers have reported hearing distant, high-pitched feminine screams and panicked laughter echoing through the rock tunnels when no one else is on the track, and walkers frequently describe a profound, overwhelming sense of grief and sudden, irrational nausea that completely lifts the moment they step off the mountain's walking tracks, while photographers have captured distinct, white, cloud-like human shapes weaving through the standing stones. 1. Belanglo State Forest Tracks, New South Wales. Belanglo is indisputably the most notorious and terrifying forest in Australian history, having served as the dumping ground for Ivan Milat, the infamous backpacker killer, who brutally tortured and murdered at least 7 young hitchhikers throughout the 1980s and 1990s, a dark legacy that deepened in 2010 when Milat's great-nephew carried out a separate copycat axe murder along the exact same forest tracks. The pine plantation is literally a mass grave site stained with unimaginable human suffering, consisting of endlessly repeating, mathematically straight rows of tall, dark pine trees that block out the wind and natural sunlight, creating an unnatural, dead silence where birds refuse to nest and the entire forest feels completely devoid of life. This overwhelming environment of pure, unadulterated dread is home to intense paranormal activity. People driving or walking the dirt tracks after dark frequently report seeing pale, translucent young men and women covered in dirt, holding backpacks, or frantically waving their arms for help, only to vanish into thin air when headlights wash over them. Campers brave enough to pitch tents near the execution sites have recorded terrifying audio of heavy, rhythmic boot heels crunching slowly through the pine needles around their tents, accompanied by the distinct, sickening sound of something heavy being dragged along the forest floor, all while countless visitors report seeing pairs of hostile, red glowing eyes watching them from the pitch-black gaps between the perfectly straight rows of trees. Whether these stories are the result of restless spirits, local legends, or the mind playing tricks in the wilderness, the mystery remains. If you enjoyed today's journey into Australia's darkest trails, subscribe to Shadow Whispers for more true haunted places and unexplained mysteries. Until next time, stay safe and never ignore the feeling that something is walking just behind you.